Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Atlas Information Live. I'm your host, Atlas Alex, and today we are going to be looking at and hopefully discussing in a panel format the age that we are living in and how different people, certain individuals, have given this age different names depending on their tradition or the perspective. And one of the perspectives that we're going to be looking at today is the perspective of Friedrich Nietzsche, because he wrote about what he called the age of the last men, or he talked about the last men, and he also talked about the age of the camel. And it is a poignant perspective to take, not least because of the environment that we all find ourselves in, the impending institutional collapse that we all sense. We all feel a kind of intuitive knowing that things are beginning to come apart at the seams and things are beginning to collapse all around us. And that description, the age of the camel, really is a sort of idiom that we all are familiar with, the straw that breaks the camel's back, that there is a weight or a burden, and that there is this burden of complexity on all of these various systems and institutions that we have established, certainly over the last 150 years, which we refer to as modernity. And that in the days of the last men, as Nietzsche describes it, the last men will be so defined by that institutional mechanicity that they will essentially be incapable of facing the changes and the impending collapse and all of the weight, the very crises that they have generated. And then there's this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. But there is also hope. And there is also opportunity. And it is that opportunity and that hope that I wish to be able to focus on today. Just what is that hope? What is that opportunity? And where is our place in making that hope or that opportunity a reality? Like how do we act on that opportunity? How do we actualize it? I don't want to say how do we capitalize on it, because that has this air of exploitation about it. And this isn't about exploitation in that sort of, it's not about capitalizing in the capitalist opportunistic sense of the word, but rather how do we make the most of what appears to be a bad situation? Or how do we, to use an alchemical term, how do we transmute what the last men are going to perceive as a catastrophe? How do we transmute that into a tremendous opportunity for progress for the whole of humanity? And what does it take to do that? And pardon me while I just make an adjustment here on my monitor was flickering and the cable was loose in the back. Okay, so that is in broad strokes what we will be exploring today. And I have, of course, sent invites out to some individuals to join us, and they may be joining us as we progress here. But in the meantime, if you would like to join us, you're more than welcome. I've put the links in the chat and on screen here. You just punch that into any browser, or you can even use your phone. If you don't have a camera set up on your computer or a microphone set up on your computer, you can use your phone if you wish to participate. And come on, join the live stream. We can make it more interactive that way. So I don't purport to be an expert on Nietzsche or to have, read his books or his works. I'm only referencing him here because he devoted a great deal of his philosophy to this notion of the last men and the end times. I guess you could say that Nietzsche had a very pragmatic, yes, but he had a very realistic perspective on the emerging 20th century. And he recognized the direction that humanity was headed. And in particular, Nietzsche's famous axiom was his declaration that God was dead. And of course, if one of my colleagues were here, he would say that, no, that's not what he said. That's not what he meant. What he really meant was philosophy was dead. And either way, the implication of his statement, the observation he was making and immortalizing in the statement, God is dead, was the disconnection, the disassociation, or the word that I chose for the title of today's discussion, which is dissonance between God and his creation. In the sense that modernity, society, civilization, as we created it, as men created it, the last men created it, created such a society, such a civilization that was so mechanized, mechanical, materialist, and secular that it had all but eradicated the divine. And in that eradication, in that stripping away of divinity from that which we called modernity, it was that which provoked Nietzsche to make such a provocative statement that God is dead. Because if God is absent from the world, or if he is absent from the dominant power structure and organizational structure and institutional structure of humanity, then his absence is, practically speaking, as if he doesn't exist. But from Nietzsche's point of view, and certainly from philosophy's point of view, God certainly did exist, or does exist. But to shut him out, and I always liked Wayne Dyer had a way of expressing this. He said, we edged God out. We edged God out. E-G-O. Edged God out. And of course, E-G-O spells ego. And that is very much a salient perspective on modernity. That even so-called religious groups or sects or movements or New Age or so on, there is so much more ego involved than there is God. God's actual involvement and influence takes a back seat to the egos, the desires, the wants, and the needs of the institutions themselves, and then the individuals partaking in said institutions or belief systems or collectives or cults or whatever the case may be. And the thing about mechanicity is that it must adhere to the law of entropy. Nothing on this level, on this plane of reality, can avoid the degeneration and impending collapse. And it is that fact that we are all becoming more and more conscious of as we progress forward, progress in a linear, temporal way of thinking about progression, but we are not progressing in a qualitative sense of the word. In many ways, we are regressing as we move forward through space and time. It seems that many of the faculties and capabilities and capacities of human beings, when we are at our best, they are becoming less and less relevant, less and less important, and certainly less prominent in our experience of modernity. And a good example of this is you look to the art world. You look to popular culture, you look to media, cinema, films, and so on. The rise of AI slop and formulaic, repetitive, just regurgitated IPs and properties and the same stories being resurfaced and rehashed and retold, but retold mostly in superficial, inferior ways, as opposed to how they were told in the past. It's sort of like everything is becoming fast food. Everything is undergoing the same transformation as food and healthcare did, where it's becoming a commoditized product output by the big machine, and uniformity and consistency and efficiency dominate the decision-making process all along the line. So what you end up with is the quality suffers. The quality is where the compromises are made in order to hit various targets and check various boxes of a quantitative capacity. So in that overarching big picture, if you will, you have what Nietzsche referred to as the last men. And he called this time the days of the last men. Well, what did he mean by that? And the last men are what, in modern parlance, people refer to as NPCs, or the zombie apocalypse, right? These NPCs meaning non-player characters. These people who go through the motions of living, but aren't really alive in the metaphysical sense of the word, because they are so disconnected from their souls, from their being. So they're not true human beings. They're just, rational intellectual hominids, like ants in an ant colony, or if you remember Star Trek: The Next Generation, they're drones in the Borg collective. They're just going about doing what they're told to do by the big machine, by the big system, and they're just happy to be a cog in the machine and to have their little place in the system where they do their little job, they do their little task, and they get their reward for that task. And then they go in their free time, they spend it with their family and friends, consuming product that the big machine tells them to consume. And the product that they are given is like so many of those dystopian novels, whether it's George Orwell or Aldous Huxley or any number of them. There's always these whether it's soma, or drugs, or vacuous, empty entertainments, but it's like content, just, but it's there to dull the mind, dull the senses, and indulge the desires, to placate the masses, to keep them placated, and to keep them showing up for work on Monday. But even that is now being challenged by another paradigm. And that new paradigm is, they call it AI, although it's not really AI, it's not really intelligence, but they call it that. And the promise there is that the machine can become so dominant as to even take away the dignity of work, right? However little dignity there may be in, going to a cubicle and doing some, meaningless busy work for 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day or 14 hours a day, whatever the case may be. Even that gives a human being a sense of some purpose, some dignity that they have earned on the basis of their own sacrifice, their own blood, sweat, and tears. They've invested into something that is greater than themselves. And we could discuss the philosophy of that and whether or not all that is just exploitation by the system. We could obviously have a discussion around that. But it's no accident that the younger generations feel the threat as this ominous looming shadow over their future, and that unemployment, I mean, just look at what we called it 100 years ago. We called it the Great Depression because unemployment had, soared, and men were out of work and they couldn't feed their families. Like, this is a tremendous downward pressure on the human being and on the human spirit when they are deprived of the ability to provide for their family, to provide for their children. And for men in particular, but both men and women, the loss of dignity and to be able to do a hard day's work. And when you're living in a city, when you're living in a metropolitan area or some urbanized center, it's not like you can, go out and start farming. It's not, you don't have any land. You might even be in an apartment or you're in a tiny little house with maybe a tiny little patch of grass. It's not like you can all of a sudden decide, well, if I'm out of work, I'm going to be a farmer. And it's not like you can pack up your family and move out to the country either, because when you lose your job, you're out of work. Because land is expensive out there. It's not like it used to be. You can't just go buy a farm for a pittance and, and become a farmer. Nowadays, a family farm is a multi-million-dollar investment and annually a multi-million-dollar enterprise. I mean, some of these tractors and combines and the not just the machines, but the equipment and the materials that they require and the inputs that they have into the soil, whether it's fertilizer and pesticides and herbicides. I mean, it's just, and if one doesn't have this experiential knowledge, one cannot go and just begin a farm nowadays because of all the regulations, right? The government oversights, there's all of these safety concerns, et cetera. It goes on and on and on and on. So what you really have is a humanity who is very much beholden to the system. And for many, this is all they have. What the system gives them to do by way of work, by way of a career, what the system tells them to think by way of government propaganda or the media, what the system gives them to consume by way of agricultural outputs, but also the grocery stores and the restaurants, and what the system gives them to consume, not just physically, but metaphysically, psychologically, which is, of course, the media and all of the content, including the content online and so on. And so someone who is wholly plugged into that, and someone who doesn't think for themselves, who doesn't reflect and contemplate and comprehend, and doesn't stand on their own set of values outside of and independent of that system, they represent individuals who cannot and will not survive the collapse of said system. Because if all you are and all you have is the system, in other words, if you're entirely reliant on the system, down to your very identity and all of your activities, work, rest, and play, if the system collapses, you will be completely helpless. You will have nothing else to anchor yourself to. So as the system goes under, so too you will go under. This is my feeling, my sense of how Nietzsche's Last Men gels with his other axiom of the death of God. People who are cogs in the machine, materialist, rational, binary, mechanical hominids. Benjamin says, I think one reason people seem less creative nowadays is that the system, call it oligarchy or elitism, has made basic living increasingly difficult. Many people can no longer afford a home, and even everyday expenses have become a challenge. When most of your time and energy are spent on survival, it's hard to focus on creativity, innovation, or personal pursuits. People naturally prioritize making ends meet before they can devote themselves to creating something new. I agree with that to a certain extent, Benjamin, but only to a certain extent. I'll tell you why. Because the video game industry is a multi-billion-dollar affair, which is worth more than movies and music and all other forms of entertainment combined. And video games eat up more of our creative energy than anything else. Yes, going to work is hard work and it's draining and everything else. It just so happens that we invented a hobby called video games that is it's not a cheap hobby, although there are degrees to how expensive one makes it, right? So you can play video games on a budget, or you can play video games, the AAA games, the moment they come out, right? So you buy everything at full price. There's an entire strata of how you can do this economically, but what is universal, is undeniable, is that no matter how you play video games, whether it's on the cheap or on the expensive end or on your phone, and everybody has a smartphone in their pocket, and everybody can download, Angry Birds or Candy Crush Saga. I don't know what the latest hot mobile game is, but these mobile games, you so-called play them for free. They're not free. Okay, they have ways of getting money directly from you, right? Because it's play for free but pay to win, all this kind of stuff. It's the live service model, in other words. They have all sorts of ways of getting money from you. At the very least, they're going to show you ads, and they're going to put trackers and other things onto your phone. So somebody once said, on the internet or online or on your phone, if somebody is providing you something for free, you are the product. Is that the whole reason why you are, quote, getting it for free is because the company is selling you somehow. Your eyeballs, your engagement is being exploited in some way. And the thing that they're giving you for free is the carrot that lures you into and onto their platform, which allows them to siphon and exploit value from you. But all that aside, you cannot deny that the time that people spend on their devices, on their screens, and especially playing games, is an energy sink. And the energy that is being siphoned away is the creative force, is the creative energy. So while I can accept the argument that life is becoming very expensive and that salaries are not keeping up with the cost of living, there's a significant divergence in the inflation and the cost of living and real world salaries, right? So you have this diverging graph, and so people are working harder and longer to get less remuneration, relatively speaking. But many who do work those long hours then choose to spend their time, their free time, essentially wasting their life away in front of a screen, playing some virtual reality or fantasy or just whatever game that has no connection whatsoever to reality. And they will do so on the basis of they need an escape, right? They need to relax. They need to be able to unplug. They need to be able to take out their frustrations and get out all of their negative energy. And so, they'll play like violent games or these kind of games or those kind of games, whatever games they like and what work for them, so that they can then go into work the next day feeling refreshed and renewed. So there's lots of reasons and rationale people have for why they play these games. But you'll see a lot of people also use that same energy to do different kinds of hobbies which are more constructive or creative, as opposed to just consumptive. I can put it that way. Because the thing that I would argue is that we have made content and the consumption of content so easy and so available and so ubiquitous that it's way worse now than it was certainly when I was growing up, but when you were growing up, Benjamin, when we had the television, right? Before we had the internet, we just had TV. And I don't know about you, but I remember a time when there were like 3 channels, right? Way before cable TV, etc. And things have progressed to a point where we have the expression doom scrolling. And you've probably experienced this, whether it's on social media or on YouTube or any platform where there's the illusion of choice. Netflix, Apple TV or Amazon Prime, any of these streaming services or anything that is portending to have this unlimited choice, unlimited options for you to choose from. And you just sit there and you start, quote, browsing, and you look down at your watch and an hour has passed and you still haven't chosen something to watch. You've just been doom scrolling for hours. All of that is siphoning the energy out of you. It's like sucking the energy out of you. It's sucking the life out of you. And it's honestly the most uncreative activity any of us can engage in is doom scrolling. we have nothing to show for it at the end. We haven't even watched anything. We never even got around to watching a documentary or whatever, where we might have learned something or what have you. So from that sense, I agree with you. The entire system is designed to siphon and suck the energy out of us, to suck the life out of us, because that's what machines do. That's what machines need. They need power. They need energy. But we cannot entirely blame the system, and we cannot entirely free ourselves of the responsibility of the things that we do that actively participates in that. I know for myself, I've gone to great lengths to unplug from the phone, so to speak. I try to get outside multiple times a day, and I don't take my phone with me. It stays in my apartment. I go outside. No connections, no phone calls. The only thing I want to connect with is the wildlife, right? Is the animals and the people that I might meet on the trail, walking dogs and so on, and the chipmunks and squirrels and birds, and that's the connection that I'm looking for when I go outside. But that's on me, right? Nobody's going to give that to me. Nobody's going to the system certainly isn't going to go out of its way to provide that or offer that. But according to the law of entropy, the system is going to be moving away from that. And the system is going to be, quote, offering exactly the opposite of that. Because that's what mechanical nature's job is. Its purpose is to create the age of the last men. And we know that's its purpose because we look around and that's what exists. That's what the system has created. That's what your entire comment is about. But we'll get to more on the creativity side and the opportunity to be creative in a moment. Eduardo says, there was a brief span of time when developers cared about story, character development, and artistry. The golden age of the old open world games had it right. Beautiful open worlds with no railroading. This is an example of what we're here to explore and talk about today. And Eduardo, I thought I had emailed you the link, but you're more than welcome to jump on. I put the link. It's in the chat, but it's also on screen again. we might as well get into it, because the other thing that Nietzsche is known for is the concept of the Ubermensch, sometimes translated as Superman. And it can also be translated as the overman, or the advanced man, or it depends on how metaphysical and esoteric you want to get with it, because Nietzsche himself was, although he was a mystic in the same vein as Jung, and he was in a sense a hermeticist, as best as I can tell without having read his work. The concept of the Ubermensch, it's really, he's talking about true human beings. Human beings who operate on another level. They operate from a higher level. And the implication there is, it's there in military strategy when one is said to have the high ground. But it is there also in ethics when one is said to have the moral high ground. You see, the high ground, by definition, in all practical sense of the term, gives one greater perspective. It allows you to step outside of the limitations of your current perspective, where you see everybody eye to eye. But that perspective is a limited perspective, because you can only see so far until the phenomena of the dimension you're in obscures the distance to which you can see. But if you can get a bird's eye view, which is another expression, right? Why do we have satellites orbiting the Earth with cameras pointing down at the Earth? Have we not all used Google Maps and Google Earth? And how about when we tune in to see the weather and the weather network, the weather channels, and we want to see the radar shot of where are the clouds, where are the storms, and how are they going to move in and at what time? It's because we're planning our day, we're planning a picnic, or we're planning some other outdoor activity. We're trying to get it in the little window of sunshine that we're going to have between storm systems, or any number of things, right? The high ground, the high perspective gives us this overview, the big picture, in other words. And remember the psychological impact it had on this planet when the first photos of the Earth taken from space, when you could see the entire Earth. This was the birth of the expression, the big blue marble. And I remember there was even a kids show in the 70s and 80s called The Big Blue Marble. For the first time, humanity had the perspective that we are all together. We're all in the same boat. This one planet. It's impossible for you to have that perspective here on the ground. Impossible. You cannot conceive of it. You cannot see it unless it's just completely fabricated in your imagination. But you take it for granted that you have seen those photos of the Earth from space. But throughout time, throughout history, there have always been what Nietzsche calls Ubermensch. There have always been souls who were outsiders, who were not accepted. They did not have a place in the system. Or if they were, it was a very tenuous, touch and go kind of walk on eggshells kind of relationship. I'm thinking of Leonardo da Vinci, who Leonardo da Vinci was walking the razor's edge of being excommunicated by the Catholic Church for basically his entire adult life. He was this close to being excommunicated on a number of occasions. I mean, they had papal conferences in Rome with the cardinals and the bishops and everyone, whether or not they should excommunicate Da Vinci, because a lot of things that he was doing were heretical according to the Catholic Church. But gosh darn it, they couldn't ignore his accomplishments at the same time. So all of the Renaissance men were a kind of fly in the ointment of the Catholic Church in the same way. Hello, Eduardo. How are you today?
Hello. Not bad. I've been catching your live stream, and you're circling back to one of the first points you made right now with Leonardo. Was it with Leonardo, or are we talking about what's his name?
I was talking about Nietzsche.
Right, Nietzsche, but the planets revolving around the sun instead of the planets.
Copernicus and Galileo.
Copernicus and Galileo, yeah.
Yeah. So
all of them, like you said, were attacked by the church. However, this goes into the belief systems that you were talking about. Things that can't exist out of the belief system. We can't comprehend that.
Well, this is the other reason why I chose the term dissonance, because dissonance is the operative word in the expression cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is the condition of one who cannot incorporate, they cannot even hear new information if it threatens their established belief systems or established worldviews on which they have that constitute the foundation on which they've built their sense of self. So if an individual has erected their sense of self, their temple of man, if that is erected on the teachings of the Catholic Church, they cannot even listen to, let alone entertain, any kind of, let's say, Gnostic perspective, because it becomes an existential threat. Because as soon as you start to question what for them constitutes the foundation of who they are, then it becomes a personal attack on them. You simply sharing something or showing something becomes an ad hominem from their point of view, not because you are attacking them personally, but because they are so identified and attached to the belief that by questioning the belief, you are attacking the foundation of who they believe they are. And that's cognitive dissonance is why, and that's why it's impossible to have a constructive discussion or not convincing is not the right word, but it's impossible to discuss in a civilized way the facts with someone who are so identified and attached to their beliefs that it's personal. That's and so unfortunately that's 90% of the world these days.
Well, that explains the news media headlines every day. Let's outrage people. Let's reaffirm the beliefs that we want to keep in people by enraging them with.
And that's exactly right. And why the internet is awash with they call it rage bait.
Mhm.
It's content that is exactly as you describe. It's content designed to to validate the anger of any particular echo chamber by casting shade and projecting anger at at the other side, or the
Right.
other team, or whatever the other is, right?
Right. And
Othering everybody.
ultimately keeps people going in a circle, so they can never reach anything higher. They only end up on a
But
lateral
it's
path.
worse than a circle. It's a downward spiral,
Hmm.
right?
Which
Because
looks like a circle from above.
but it's still a spiral from above. It's still it's and it see and the spiral
Yes, I
from
can see it in
above,
your logo.
as it collapses, that's right, and it goes down towards imploding, right? And that's really what we're witnessing now, because that's what happens when a machine or a building or a physical structure overgrows itself. It begins to collapse in on itself. It collapses under its own weight. All of these things are connected. All of these facets of, or expressions of, entropy. It's almost like it's built into mechanicity itself, that mechanicity is allowed to get so big, but then it reaches a critical mass, and then it just starts to internally collapse. It's like how everything on this level of reality eventually falls into decay and dies, and that there's nothing on mechanical nature that doesn't behave that way. Everything dies. Everything falls apart. Just so happens that nowadays the things that we build fall apart in 5 years, where, a few decades ago they fell apart after 50 years. But that's another.
Well, no. It has a lot to do with what we're talking about, because if the system is putting profits over people, then of course they're going to build things incorrectly. And you mentioned movies are being written incorrectly because we're ignoring the sacred. We're ignoring mythology, and that extends to every part of society. You talk about the building materials. That's probably the basest example of and the most common example that we can see everywhere of what's going on.
Well, the your example there that you mentioned, the developers who cared about story and character development and so on, this relates directly to what Nietzsche was describing as the fundamental nature of the Ubermensch. Now, he said basically, and again, Ubermensch can be translated a number of different ways. Just for our sake, for the sake of simplicity, because I also happen to like this translation, because to call him, I should remember to add this to stage. So there we go. We have a Superman. So, and look, okay. So before we get into this, let me add Wolfgang and Murphy. Hello, how are you today?
Okay.
I'm doing all right.
We
Hello.
got a little delayed because Brampton's having a big street festival.
Oh, well, there you go. Is it a pride? Is it a pride festival?
No, it's just
Well, it looks like it with all the different colors going.
Is it is it a pre-FIFA festival? Like, did somebody win in the preliminaries?
It's just Brampton. Brampton.
It's an Indian festival.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
unless Indians are participating in FIFA now, which they won't, but we'll see. It's just so it is what it is. It's just a lot of cultures celebrating their culture.
How is everybody? Murphy, I think you're a little bit too far from the microphone.
Okay.
I think
Sorry.
you're gonna be, yeah.
I'm a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, that's a little bit better.
Yeah. I should be okay now.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome. I was just getting into talking about. Well, I mean, you can tell from the background that I have going on today that we're talking about the days of the last men and the end times and so on. But we were just getting into how, in the midst of all of this mechanicity and how everything has been mechanized, and that the vast majority of people have been mechanized. They're very mechanical. They're just going through the motions, and that all the big machine, not only does it make them go to these and behave like cogs in the machine and everything else, but on their free time, the machine feeds everybody this mechanical slop, like and it's like this formulaic, like churned out by off an assembly line kind of so-called entertainments to occupy people until they're ready to go to work again. And that it's this self-fulfilling thing. And then you have on everything on the internet where it's rage bait and all this negativity, where again it's keeping people locked and trapped in a very mechanical level of reality. And this is what Nietzsche referred to as the last men, because these are people who are utterly uncreative. They can't innovate, and they can't get themselves out of the system that needs to change. And so when that system collapses, those people are going to collapse along with that system because they're entirely dependent on that system.
Right.
But sorry, did you want to add something to that, Murphy?
I was going to say that's exactly what the people are calling now. They're calling that normie, right? Being a normie. And so even though I do agree everything's going to collapse, the fact that we have the term normie now means that all those who know that they are in the collapse will have to break free from it because they don't want to be normie anymore. It's just as much as an identity as the same with LGBTQT and all that stuff. It's just once that collapses, they have to break away from it. And if they don't, they can get stuck until it just doesn't exist anymore.
Well, the thing that needs to be addressed is how much is this already an addiction, or what you would call neurolinguistically a neural pathway that has them trapped. And you're saying, well, those that can't, and I would say they all can't because they're all addicted to this. Right?
I slightly disagree because, like I said, if there's an identity already attached to it, then that means there's a possibility for everybody to break free from it because now there's identity involved in it. In the mechanicity of it, where it's impossible to see it, no way are people getting through. But now we have identity to it. And that's not a good thing because, more people get attached, more people get into it. But it also still gives the opportunity for people to be free of it, is what I think.
Okay.
I don't... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ed.
I was going to say, I don't think it's necessarily impossible to break free. There will always be something to show you that something exists outside of the system. Just watch the movie Brazil. It is probably the best example of somebody who's a cog in the machine, trapped in the biggest machine the world has ever seen. And things pop into his life, and he eventually chooses to see what lies beyond. And I think that exists within everyone. I mean, I've worked in factory settings before. I've seen people that are the quote unquote lifers, and then the people that are there just as a stepping stone. And I've seen people that are there because it's something to do. They're not trapped in it. They're not involved in the politics. They do their thing and they get out. So I think it exists in everybody. It's just a matter of what's going to pull you out of it.
So on that note, let's get into what might or what Nietzsche says is required. And what he says is required is, he says, the Supermen. Now, okay, this is one Superman, but Nietzsche talks about supermen, right? He thought these are a race of Ubermensch, and this is where it gets problematic, because Nietzsche was co-opted by the Nazis in the Second World War, because, of course, the Nazis loved this concept that Nietzsche created of this Overman or Superman, and that this was exploited by the Nazi regime for propaganda purposes. So we're not talking about that, right?
No, the only
We're
thing
talking
I
about.
say, yeah.
No, go ahead, Wolfgang.
I only want to say that Thus Spake Zarathustra was not accepted whatsoever by the Nazis. But what is it? The book, the big famous book, is The Will to Hammer, or the Will to Power. Will to Power, yeah. And the Philosophy of the Hammer. And that was written by his sister. The book was put together by his sister after Nietzsche was dead, and she was a Nazi, part of the German Nazi Party. So that book was specifically created because Nietzsche is not a Nazi, because Nazi is socialism. He was nowhere near that.
No, he wasn't. He did not want his works in their hands at all.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean that's but again, the thing is that socialism is mechanicity. It's socialism. They called it socialism because, remember, and we talked about this last week. This whole notion of machines pretending to be human. This is a trope or an archetype that is as old as time. Since machines have existed, people or these people have been trying to pass machines off as being human since ancient times, and it was always just an illusion, right? It was always some trickery involved. And even in I suppose you might say it's like part of the origins of steampunk in the Victorian era.
The Mechanical
Turk. They had these automatons, right?
The Mechanical Turk was the most famous of them.
Yeah, the Mechanical Turk is, you're right. It's probably the most famous. But the advent of the automaton in the Victorian period, where they were making these elaborate clockwork humanoid type machines that could do things like serve tea and stuff, and they were entirely clockwork mechanical things. And then people were oh my god, it was all like the age of wonders, right? The Victorian era, the Enlightenment was the age of wonders, and people would gush over this, and they would fantasize about, one day we will make machines that are so sophisticated we won't be able to tell them apart from human beings. And that's literally exactly Sam Altman's mission statement for ChatGPT. I mean, they designed chatbots so that they're designed to trick you into believing you're speaking to a human being. This is exactly what 70% of Fortune 500 companies do now with their customer service. online when you think you ask this question. Ask me anything. I'm here to help. And you think you're talking to a human being, you're talking to an AI chatbot. Right? So this has been, in my book, I write about this. This has been the end game for mechanical nature since the beginning. Where we are at now with AI, this is its end game, where it can create a machine that is so convincing that the last men will be unable to distinguish between a last man and a machine. That's the goal.
Okay, and I agree with that, but to me, that's more in the realm of the avatar body and the external world. So, on the terms of the inner, more spiritual element, there's another side to this. It's called the ghost in the machine, and I think that has to do to some extent with this mass formation thing, whereby it's like magic and witches, that they get so many witches together and they imbue a certain energy into, like the ghost, an entity, into a mechanical machine. And I'm suggesting that what they want is they want to create the ghost in the machine. They want to inhabit that space and operate from that space as if they were in this world in the body.
That will only be possible through transhumanism.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly.
So you're saying they want to be Skynet.
Pardon?
Sorry?
They want to be Skynet.
But they won't be able to achieve that through mechanical means alone. You need to have a conscious entity. You need to have a conscious entity that's in other words, you have to think about it in the classical sense. A demonic entity cannot enter this realm in any other way but possession. Right? So yes. What is it possessing? It's possessing a monad. And yes. What specifically about the monad is it possessing? Consciousness.
Yes.
Right?
So it's probably, according to your terminology, what you're getting in the mass formation is a bunch of demons that have possessed all these brainwashed people in that. And what they're doing is they are creating, or they're manifesting a kind of living machine, like a something that is an entity that seems to be able to, but they're conjuring it, they're making it show up. Now, whether that can exist or can't exist, I don't know personally.
Well, like, okay, so let me share with you something that I heard a Sufi imam talking about, and that is that, they refer to, egos and demons, and in other words, they have a broader term for what they call malevolent entities or malevolent spirits in the lunar astral plane. They refer to them as jinn. It's where we get the word genie from.
Yes.
But they refer to them as jinn. And what this imam was saying is that it was the jinn who influenced humanity to make the first computer chips, to make them out of silicon.
Okay.
Because silicon is well, it's silica, right? It's part of the mineral kingdom, right?
Yeah.
Silica is a natural substance, but it's a mineral. And because it's a mineral and all minerals have monads, that means they all possess a very, very small amount, but they all possess consciousness, because all rocks, all minerals have consciousness. It's part of the mineral kingdom. And what this imam was saying is that by making computer chips out of silicone, certain jinn like the tricksters and the troublemakers can actually possess computers and possess the chips, and why it is that sometimes your computer just doesn't behave, and you just can't get your computer to do what it's supposed to do, and it just seems to malfunction, and nobody, you can try to get people to help you or whatever, and nobody seems to be able to help you. This Sufi imam was claiming that it's very likely that your computer is under the influence of a troublemaking jinn, that it's possessing the homunculi, right? That's the elemental spirits of the mineral kingdom, are the gnomes, the pygmies, right? That's why we have things called garden gnomes,
Right.
because that's what the elemental spirits of the mineral kingdom look like. And so but they can be possessed by these jinn, by these malevolent trickster troublemaking spirits. So if that is true, is it possible that you can make a chip so complex that it can be possessed by a greater demon? My argument is no, because it doesn't matter how much quantity like of mineral you put into a chip. It's still mineral, and its consciousness will still be at the level of the mineral kingdom, right?
Okay.
Demons possess humans because we have consciousness at our level, at the human level, which is
Okay.
why, but on the same basis, my argument is very similar, that if jinn can possess the silicon on a computer chip, well, rest assured, if somebody puts a computer chip in their brain, then they can be possessed by a demon, and that demon can then take control of that machine, of that computer. That essentially will become that cybernetic organism will
Yeah.
become a vehicle for that demon.
And that may be the end game, but in the meantime, you still have this thing of witches and this mass formation element, which is a basis for manifestation and conjuring. Okay, and the thing about that is, I don't say it's permanent, but I say it's at least temporary. Okay, it's a construct that manifests for a time being. I mean, in this physical world, everything is temporary. So it does break down. And the question is, to what degree is the magic, the black magic there, to sustain and maintain that temporality of that conjuring, which
But
is
it's
a
not.
manifestation. It's not what you're saying. No, it's not.
It's not.
It
It's
does-
not demonic. It's not demonic. At best, what they're
No,
doing
okay,
is it's
that's
imbuing
what
it with spirit, with the
Yes,
spirit, like the spirit of a dead person or whatever.
that's what I'm getting at. That this
But
other
that's
thing,
So
but
well,
but
that's
see
that's
but
the
you know
go-
what? That's why witches give everybody a hard time, and
Yeah.
tell them that, and to tell everybody that you guys are like, we're harmless, because the most that you can do with that is like, it's like the most that they can conjure up is something like a poltergeist.
Yeah.
Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But that's not a demonic spirit.
Well, here's the problem with all of that, right? This stuff becomes very, very deadly and powerful, dependent upon those that are open and recipients to it. Okay, so that's not the same for everybody. In other words, when you look at what is it in what are they called? Those guys that put voodoo, the voodoo guys. They put a hex spell, right? And the spell doesn't. They imply that it affects everybody, but it doesn't. It affects those that believe in that kind of thing.
So I have a question here.
Sure.
Because what you guys talking about, it sounds to me, at least just to me, it sounds a little bit like curiosity, right? And that curiosity can be both from a consciousness and from a possession. So my question to you is, which do you guys think this falls in the conversation you're saying? Does it fall into possession? Does it fall into higher consciousness? Or is it something that has to do with knowing and then exploiting or exploring, or however it is that goes? Because that's where right now it's a little bit confusing to me, because I can't get a handle on what it is that you guys are talking about in this situation.
Well, we got a little bit sidetracked, and from the standpoint of what the whole goal of machines, wanting to make machines human-like, or wanting to replace humans or enslave humans, with machines. We got a little bit sidetracked, but the reason why we got on this topic is because what Wolfgang was saying. Well, there are these witches and these other like black magicians or whatever, who are all about letting or having spirits or malevolent entities, for lack of a better word, possess physical objects. And the question you're asking, Murphy, if I understand you correctly, is to what degree are the people doing this kind of magic? To what degree are they doing it consciously? And to what degree are they being convinced to do it by some malevolent entity, I guess is that what you're asking?
A little, yeah, it is. And I'm just saying it in the sense of just calling it like curiosity, right? There's an innocence to it. How much of it is an innocence and how much of it really isn't at all, right? Because I think there is an innocence to it, right? When a child is building Legos or whatever, right? They eventually move to a point of wanting to make that real. It can't be, right? Because there's no living thing part of it. But I think that has to do with themselves being curious and them wanting that to happen more than this a witch telling them, hey, we're going to possess this Lego to move and you're going to believe it, right? It's like, at least I'm being a little extreme here, but, like, that's where that
comes. Okay, so let me in terms of the magic side. Okay, you know what would qualify as innocent? Well, a bunch of 14-year-olds, okay, with a Ouija board, right? Playing with a Ouija board, seeing what happens. Right? That's as far as it goes. Okay? You like Dr. Frankenstein does not create the monster out of innocence. Right? He's not curious. He's not curious. He's proud. He has the hubris that he wants the power of God. He wants the power to create life, to give life to where there's lifelessness. This is hubris. This is pride. This is mechanical nature wanting to exert power over God, which is what all possession and everything is about. There's no innocence there, Murphy. It is 100% demonic possession. It is 100% mechanicity. I want the power of God. That's not innocent.
Right. Okay.
Well, Ed, did you want to add to that?
Yeah. No, I was going to ask Murphy, do you mean innocence or do you mean naivete?
So, naivete. No, I think naivete comes from knowledge, right? If you have knowledge of something, you instantly fall into that category.
Well, it comes from both having a knowledge, but a lack of the full knowledge, right?
Yes, that too, right? And the reason why I didn't say that part is because that part is more natural even in consciousness, right? Being in the knowing, right? But not looking into infinity. That's kind of what you're saying. And so I don't try to mention that, but I am trying to mention that this innocence has so much to do with serving, right? Serving and putting in the effort to serve without knowing anything about the dark energies and the stuff that exists in that form or in that separate form of what that person's curious about. Because
Okay, so
Right, and then we go back to exactly what Attila is saying, because then who are you serving? What are you serving?
Yeah. That's the key. Like, I want to just put in one point. I met David Suzuki on the street, and I told him what I was doing with building ecosystems, and he said exactly what you said. He said, who do you think you are? You know, God, right? And I've always questioned that about myself, right? And so where is, this pertains to the innocence part. Where's that place where you do play kind of God, but that's not where it's coming from. It's not coming from me, my ego. I'm being guided to do God's work, which is that naivety, maybe, that he's talking about, or innocence. But then again, I'm not innocent. I choose to make the world a better place.
okay, so I want to
there's
throw out.
there's a distinction between Frankenstein and this, I think. And I
Okay,
think
so there, you see, this is where the word
yeah,
brings so much power to the question at hand, because really, naivete is
yeah,
innocence plus ignorance.
right,
That's what naivete is,
yes,
right? Now, what Wolfgang is describing, what David Suzuki's reaction to Wolfgang was because David Suzuki, although his heart has been in the right place, he's actually he idolizes mechanical nature, and he
yeah,
is he doesn't understand the difference between serving God, or in this particular case, our innermost essence of God, our higher self, and serving that, who is the one that, and this is why this is a good segue to get into this topic here, because the last men, right, as Wolfgang was describing, right, they do this actually, and they these are double arrows, right? Like they take in, right, and then they redo some kind of, like, process on it, and then they spit out into the world. But this is the last men, okay, and this is AI. AI does exactly the same thing. What they call these large language models. You take a bunch of input from the world, okay, and you read a bunch of books, and you read and read and read and read and read, and you think you're really smart because you have this information, okay, and then you quote process like that info, and your process, just like a food processor. You put all the ingredients into a processor, into a blender, and you blend it all up, and then you spit it all out as,
yeah.
quote, your original idea, right? Or
Or
whatever.
or what that also adds up to is the thing we call quantum physics, and all they're doing is building the wall thicker and thicker and thicker of the box that they're in. Okay, and they're not creating any kind of exit from that box. So the more
the
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, finish your thought.
No, it's just that I see every attempt at exactly what you're saying is these people that think they're escaping and creating a new science or beyond the existing science. And all they're doing is just making it more complicated and more complicated. Eventually, this thing collapses in on itself at some point.
right,
It has to.
I guess what he's saying, and what I'm getting to understand, what I'm understanding is that the thing with AI and everything that seems to be faster than man is just them overcomplicating things. And so the idea that we're going to, what's the word? we're going to be taken over by AI and all that stuff is bullshit, because that's only thinking from the process of what you're talking about, where they're taking external stuff into them and spitting that out. So yes, in that race, you will lose.
So ultimately, there's no novelty. There's nothing new. It's just, you say, a recycling. And there also is really no creation there. It's separate from creation. Is it, or is it not?
This is not. This is at best. At
Yes.
best, you have a very crude technological kind of procreation.
Okay. All right. That's
Okay,
great.
but it's not creation, because creation is
Exactly.
this. Okay, creation is this. You have a true self or a higher self. Okay, that feeds you the novelty or whatever it is that you want to use there, and this creates and inspires
Yes.
the Ubermensch, right, the Superman, to take this and synthesize it and use their hands and their mind and their eyes and all of their faculties, okay, to then bring it to the world, right?
Yeah. So one thing you said, the true self. Well, the true self reaches into consciousness itself and is able to draw something particular to you, and
Okay.
possibly what you're here to do or what you can do, but it's also for you to become more conscious.
Okay, so
really what,
if you want to get into all of the into the weeds of the metaphysical science of this,
right,
the true self is made up of it's the monad.
right,
Okay, the true self is the consciousness. Consciousness. It's the human soul.
okay,
Okay, and it's and it is what's known as the Atman, or higher self.
okay,
In other words, it's another vessel, it's another vehicle. In the same way that we are a 3D vehicle,
right,
our heart and our mind are a 5D vehicle.
right,
The monad is a 6D vehicle. And consciousness is the medium, okay, of the self, and the interconnecting the bridge between the higher self and the human soul.
okay,
In the same way that the heart mind is the bridge between the human soul and the body. So so that's just a little bit of metaphysical science for you. And then the Atman, our higher self, this is the essence.
okay,
Okay, this is the essence. This is, you might say, the S in Superman,
right,
right? And that connects to, if I can do this, let's see if I can just move all of this down for a bit. The Atman is what connects us to, shoot, go away. Okay, why? Okay, the upper trinity of and then through here we have Da'at, or Gnosis. Okay, and the upper trinity is we can say, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. This is also known as the Christ, and this is the seventh dimension. It's the world of archetypes. Okay, this is where the Christ is, and the Holy Spirit. This is the Father Keter, And then above this is the absolute. So we have levels and levels, but this here, by the way, is gnosis. It's da'at. It's the hidden sefer on the tree of life. This is knowledge, but experiential knowledge. This constitutes, right? This gnosis is contained inside the so-called box, right? Above this is the seventh dimensional arms of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. These are the wings of the cherubim of, the ark of the covenant. And the monad is the vessel, the vehicle, but the vessel that carries this box, right? This is the ark of Noah, because the upside down triangle is the hull of the ship, and the upper triangle are the cherubim, the angels who are touching wings on top of the ark of the covenant. And what do you put in the ark? Experiential knowledge and that which is most precious. So this is the actual metaphysical, esoteric origin of the ark and the ark. And then the other thing, of course, is that the upper trinity on the tree of life also forms an arch. And at the very top of the tree of life, we have our Father who art in heaven. And who is the Christ? Who is the Son of the Father? Well, that's Thor. If you have art and Thor, that's where we get Arthur. That's where we get Arthur. From the mysteries of Camelot and the Holy Grail, because the monad down here becomes the Holy Grail that Arthur seeks. All of this feeds into what Nietzsche is talking about, the Superman. Okay, because the Superman, he says, the Supermen are this comes back to what you just said a moment ago, Wolfgang. These are creative men.
Right.
But to be truly creative requires art, but not just art. You need the hammer with which to craft. You need to put the art into activity. That's Thor. That's Mjolnir, and he has the power of the lightning, which is the lightning which descends from on high. That's the so the other expression of this, if the Father art is Zeus, then the one who puts it into activity, who has Zeus or is with Zeus, is the He Zeus, the Son. And that's the Christ, the Christic force. But that force is the creative force. It is the art in activity. It is Arthur. It is the one who goes on the quest. And the quest that he goes on to is for the souls of humanity. And the souls of humanity are right here, the human soul in the sixth dimension. And that's part of the monad. That's the higher self. But for this higher self to achieve his quest, according to the Alm of Life, you must descend into hell before you can ascend. And what do you need to descend into hell? You need an armor. You need a vessel to be able to go into hell. You need a character to go into the video game to play the game. That is the person and the personality. Right? That is our character. That is so and then we have a name for that also. We say avatar. Whoops. Let me fix that. It's Avatar. So Superman, the Superman is the one who is the true artist, the true creative that is acting on, that is the physical embodiment or the worldly embodiment of everything that you see there. And that the last men, they are this character minus all of this. So when we ask the question, what does it take for somebody, like you were saying earlier, Eduardo and Murphy were saying earlier, yeah, that you believe that people have the ability, everybody has the potential to escape the matrix, right? To wake up and escape the matrix, or to break out of the machine, or to break out of their status as a last man. At the very least, they need an example to be able to follow. And that's the Superman. At the very least, they need the Superman as an example to follow. But we all know from history that very often they would rather kill Supermen and avatars than follow them. So this is why the Supermen have to be creative, especially now. They have to be connected to the art. They have to be leaders. They have to be like Arthur, who brings together the knights of the Round Table, and he must present them with a quest, a glorious quest, to find and to return the monad, the grail, the Holy Grail, which is what grants everlasting life, by the way, which is what you have to do. You have to create the solar bodies. You have to create the human soul to be able to live forever, to be able to travel in the supernal worlds. That's the secret hidden meaning of why Arthur and his knights go on a quest for the Holy Grail, because they go on a quest for the monad, for the unification between the self, the lower self, and the higher self. This is, by the way, we are also a triunity down here, but I mean, let's just leave it at this for now. But being an example, yes, of course, but there's something else that the Superman can do, because they're working with art, because it's genuine art and where art comes from. Thou, our Father who art in heaven, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it art in heaven. So what that means is their art, if it is genuine art, it is inspired. Which means, inspired, which means in spirit. And the thing is that if your art is inspired, then it can inspire. And that is the other thing that can save those last men who have the potential, who are on the edge, right? So we have inspiration and an example. In other words, leadership. Inspiration and leadership are the two qualities of the Ubermensch, of the Superman. And that's why when we look at the greatest expressions of the character, of the archetype of Superman in film, we end up with the Donner version of Superman, Christopher Reeve, and we end up with Zack Snyder's version of Superman. But this latest version of Superman, this James Gunn Superman, inspired nobody. And although it might have been entertaining, but he was not inspiring. He did not embody that that Zeus, that Hey Zeus. He did not embody the lightning and the power of the art of arts, right? He was not an inspiring Superman, this latest version, right? Not like the previous. Certainly not like Christopher Reeve. But that's what a Superman has to be. Has to be a leader, and he has to inspire. So an inspirational leader. And on that basis, this is why I finally understand what Wolfgang has been trying to tell me for years and years and years about how it all just needs a critical mass of people. It just needs a critical mass of people. But you were always presenting it like a Rupert Sheldrake kind of morphogenetic field kind of thing, where just a critical mass of people can transform the world. No, a critical mass of Ubermensch, of inspirational leaders can change the world.
I was going to make an additional point there, because you're saying he's a leader. But what we're really looking for is a bunch of leaders working in harmony to create the critical mass. So they're no longer, they still function as leaders for anything that might come from the last men, but not so much anymore. It's shifting more into this kind of collective consciousness on another level, not on the mechanical nature level of what is it, telepathy, but on another level of communication, which virtually is a kind of telepathy, but it's individuated, where those Supermen are, they're the most their true self that they can possibly be, and they are supported by other extreme individuated yet connected in the connectedness of what the true, what is really the universe is about. It's the ocean, right? They're all in that larger sphere, and they're cooperating and coordinating with each other, but they have to be leaders in order to function there.
So let me ask this.
But they're not leading so much, but they can be that. I think there's a transition that happens at a certain point.
All right, and this question comes out to everybody who can answer this. So I think it doesn't take so much to be a leader. I think it is a natural calling to be a leader. And at the same time, though, my question is, when you're a leader, what qualities are the most prevalent, or not even prevalent, but most important when being a leader? Because to a certain degree, I think there are many different kinds of leaders, but there are still a connected, what do you call it? A connected sense of all these leaders together that help create things. Because if a leader is by himself and he's creating things by himself, he's just, at that point, he's just like a black magician, or he's a dark person. But if you're a normal creative person, and I think normal in a weird sense, but if that becomes normal, then you have different qualities. And I'm asking for everybody here, what do you think is one of the most important qualities of a leader outside of inspiration? Because inspiration is just, it's part of Superman, but I'm just talking about the leader itself, just the leader.
It's something that sort of presents itself or emerges naturally. So Kingdom of Heaven, he says, well, what does that say? And he says, well, that says what manner of man doesn't make the world a better place. And I think that is the foundation, and that allows for the thing, what you call leader, to just show up. in that space of making the world a better place.
See, I think that's too easy. I get it, right? I do think that's too easy because
It is too easy. Yeah.
That makes it for anybody, even the bad leaders, to show up and do something really, I guess, toxic to the creativity of what could have been or would be a very high order system. I wouldn't even want to say ecosystem. It just becomes a system. When you talk about how easy it is in Wolfgang's kind of definition. Well, in my opinion, I'm not sure.
Let me jump in just a moment because we got a comment from Archer who says the 2026 movie Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die is about this subject matter. He says it starts off slow but gets a lot better after the first 30 to 45 minutes. He says, I haven't watched movies in years, but was told to check this one out. That movie was on my list. I never got around to it. I'm still waiting for it to come on streaming, but it's definitely one that I'm hoping to check out. Ed, did you want to chime in on this leadership question?
Yeah, I think the word inspiration is pretty cheap these days. Leaders have to inspire, no, I don't think so. Leaders have to guide. They have to understand how to bring the best out of people that they work with. Sort of like a parent with a child. You can't fight their fight for them. You want to develop them so that one day they can take your place. Because you're not always going to be there. Maybe the leader wants to go on vacation or just needs to recharge. Well, you have to develop the people under you to not do things the way you would, but to do things in the right way, and to develop them so that their guidance systems start working for them and for the creative projects or the undertakings that everybody decides to jump into.
So this is where I slightly disagree. Sorry, not to be so harsh about it, but I think there's something about underneath and guiding that's kind of wrong because we're all this is kind of weird for me to say this. It's like we're all equal in the eyes of God in a sense, right? So we're all guiding each other. And to say that one's below someone's, one's underneath, that only exemplifies that you're not being creative because you're now having to look at the manipulation of the thing underneath you, or even seeing that something's underneath you is something to be manipulated. So guiding is okay if everyone's doing it together, right? And that's why that word works. But in the sense that we have to do it for anybody is where I think it gets all messed up a little bit, which is why.
If I may interject here, a leader has. We're talking about a leader, someone who has more experience, more failures through experience and successes than the people under them. And so, sure, everybody's equal in the eyes of God, but I'm not going to take somebody just out of school and put them in charge of a project that's going to affect billions of people. That's going to fall apart very quickly. So what you do is you take those people that don't have the experience but have the potential under people who already have the experience, who have developed things like this in the past, and together they grow. Because remember, the master learns from the student just as much as the student learns from the master. It has nothing to do with equality and inequality.
Right.
It has to do with development of the soul.
Right.
Let me offer this. Let me offer this as a very quick explanation here. Here we have, if you consider all the big mess that I drew earlier, and Wolfgang said, okay, but these Ubermensch, they have to all be, connected. They have to be in harmony. I drew this because, look, what defines a Superman is the art, the spirit that they are connected with, and that they are functioning on, that they are bringing into the world.
Exactly.
Okay, so in other words, by definition, if they really are Supermen,
Yes.
and they are being, if they are being what they are going to be in harmony.
Yes.
By definition. This cannot be any
Just-
other way. It can only be this way.
That's
Just
right.
like the Justice League.
That's why I
Sorry?
said it was simple, stupid, right? It's so it is. That's right.
Okay,
That's good.
so Eduardo, what did you say there?
I said just like the Justice League, you have all these super beings working in harmony together.
Right, for a single cause. Now, about this whole leadership and inspiration thing, okay? If someone is acting of and on behalf of and serving spirit, then what they do is by definition going to be in spirit, and by definition it is going to be inspired and inspirational. By definition. They don't have to try. They don't have to try.
No.
It's just by definition.
What
now, the second part.
Yep,
go ahead,
sorry.
Wolfgang.
No, I
No, go ahead.
Bring in the other element, which is this kind of communication, telepathic thing that starts to show up there. That really brings it more productive in its ability to achieve things and manifest.
But you know, that's not, me. I don't rely on people's capacity for that.
Okay.
I don't need to work with people who have telepathic potential and so on and so forth.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
All I need to do, and this is really important, okay, is by inspiring, it's like what we're doing and leading. Where are we leading and how are we leading them to? We're not leading them anywhere to do anything or be anyone other than their true self,
right?
Who is connected to that art. And so all we're doing, what we're inspiring, right, is we're setting them on blaze. We're letting them feel who they already are within, and where we're leading them to is who they already are, which is already connected to all of this anyway.
Yeah.
So this is addressing directly Murphy's two things. Number one, Murphy's objection that this is somehow manipulating or forcing or making people to be somehow untrue to themselves. And secondly, and this is far more important, okay, who said everyone is equal in the eyes of God? Who said that? Who made that shit up? That's not true. Why is that true? Do you think that Jesus is on the same level as the guy dealing fentanyl in the streets, or the axe murderer, or the psychopath, or the psychopathic leader of the military junta that's sending terrorists around the world to murder people? Are they on the same level as a Jesus or a Moses, or you for that matter? Who said this this bullshit about we're all equal in the eyes of God? Who said that? Who made that crap up? Because it's horseshit.
I agree, and in the same way, it's above our pay grade to judge any of that and to determine who is and who isn't. That's only up to God, like you said.
But it doesn't change the fact that there is something called the level of being.
Yeah.
And more importantly, it is the responsibility of all beings who are at a higher level this is where we get the ubiquitous symbol and archetype of the shepherd. Right. It is the responsibility of beings of a higher level to have a care for the sheep, for those beings who have not reached that level yet, who are still in kindergarten, who are still just developing and wanting to get to a higher level. And how do you do that? Well, obviously, there's a bit of a carrot and stick approach, or you have a sheepdog, but then you also have the shepherd, and that there's this balance of severity and mercy, and it's called love. the balance of those two things, severity and mercy. But that doesn't come from the mortal. That comes through the mortal. That's what Superman is.
Right.
That's the difference between the Superman and the last men. Because what we are living in, the days of the last men, and what people are sick and tired of, are all these egos that are trying to play God, that are judging and deciding, who gets on the ark and who doesn't. Like all the billionaires and the elites building their bunkers, trust me, they're not opening those bunkers up to the general public.
And
They're not.
Who are the guys that are really guilty of a lot of that are today's teachers who really are ego people, right? That are trying to be teachers when really they're not truly true to their true self. So they're kind of I don't know how you can be a teacher today, right? Like you really have to be an ego to do so, because they're telling people how to think. They're not empowering them to think for themselves. That's not what education is today. So
yeah, but education is another one of these systems that's about to collapse.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
There are plenty of people who went into teaching. They had good intentions and they wanted to, they truly are meant and born to be teachers, but then they found themselves in a system that demands that they feed the children the degenerated propaganda of the socialists, right? Or they get fired.
Yeah.
You can't teach the truth nowadays in school. You can't. You
No.
have to teach the politically correct woke propaganda.
Or you'll be gone in an instant.
Or you'll be gone. Or you'll be literally excommunicated from the education system. Or you got to go. Or you have to go and find. You got to work in the Waldorf schools or some other private institution where they still teach properly.
Right.
Because that's another option. But you know what? Those jobs are few and far between.
And not only that, but they have their own canons and their own little elite kind of structures. But
the Waldorf school was set up by Rudolf Steiner.
Yeah.
And he was an esotericist. And so, I mean, on balance, I'm sure it's not perfect, but on balance, it's infinitely better than the public school system.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's funny you say that, because all the oligarch the tech billionaires, their children go to what is it, Waldorf or Montessori schools?
No, Montessori is different. Waldorf is the one set up by Steiner. Montessori is different.
Oh, so they're not going to the Waldorf. They're going to.
I can't tell you what the tech billionaires are doing with their kids.
I just know that they keep technology out of their kids' hands, and they send them to the special schools.
Yeah, no, I know they don't let their kids go through the same system that they're spending millions of dollars voting in people to make the system that way. None of the elite allow their families to be affected by the cancer. They all expect to survive the collapse, right? And they're living their lives preparing for the collapse, but they all expect to survive the collapse. There's no other reason to build multi-million-dollar bunkers. Benjamin says, in ancient times, leaders such as John the Baptist and the prophets before him were often regarded as individuals with deeply developed spiritual lives. They embodied and proclaimed what they believed to be the living word of God. Although many were outcasts or misunderstood by society, their message resonated with sincere seekers and inspired generations of believers. I think we can say God loves us all, and that's an accurate statement.
Right.
God loves us all, and you can say that God loves us all equally. He doesn't pick favorites. You can also say that, but that doesn't make everybody equal in the eyes of God. It's a subtle nuance, but it's a difference. Mutaga says, I think God loves all beings equally. Exactly. But people are not equal in intelligence, in creativity, in being. Exactly. Exactly. Like if you have children, you love all of your children, you love equally. But at no point do any of your children, are they clones of one another? They're all different, and they all have different capacities and abilities and propensities. You love them all. They're all your children. In that sense, they are, quote, you love them all equally. But they're not all equal in your eyes. They can't be, because if you did that, it would be a disservice to them, because some children need more help, some children need less help. Some children they need more freedom, right? To discover and learn on their own. Other children need to be coddled a bit more and so on, because they're just the run to the litter or whatever. They have different capacities and propensities. Every parent knows this. It's just practical. It's just real life. And Benjamin follows up and he says, yes, I agree with Wolfgang. A true teacher should empower their disciples to think, grow, and discover truth for themselves, rather than simply telling them what to think. In a similar way, Jesus breathed upon his disciples, symbolizing the sharing of spirit, wisdom, and authority, so they could continue the work themselves. Well, the other thing, you talk about the Pentecostal fire, right? When the apostles received the Holy Spirit, it's and what I'm describing, the work of a leader in this context, the work of the Superman, is to lead individuals back to who they really are, which is their higher self and their innermost spirit. So this is what
that has to be the main thing of teaching.
Because this is exactly what Benjamin is talking about here when he says what you're teaching them or what you're giving them is the ability to connect to their own innermost guru, their own inner teacher, their own innermost essence of God, their innermost intimate Christ. And Christ is the ultimate teacher. There is no greater teacher than the Christ.
So a teacher might help get away, open the veil, right? So that opening can allow that to happen. Because right in the world that we're in, there's a veil. There's this, all that is being blocked, through the world itself, by the nature of the world that we're in, and also through our own doing. We create this veil that separates us from our true self. And so a teacher is if there's a little hole, a little tiny hole, he's trying to stretch and open that, so that then he can't do that all, but he can maybe open it a little, so that you then can move back all that conditioning, all that self-imposed identification that we engage in, we indulge in, which is part of also still the overcoming that we need to do in this third dimensional reality that we're in, and in order to gain experience. But to reach to the higher self, we need to pull all that noise, which is part of what we have to go through, out of the way, so that we can create a connection to that. So part of the way is to make the world a better place, which already creates a hole, and starts to open that. And that is what a teacher has to work with in a student, is that, and inspire that desire to make the world a better place.
That's really what I think what Ed was saying when he says to bring the best out of someone.
That's right. To empower them, but to bring for them to bring the best out of themselves, right? Or to connect with their higher self. Yes.
But that is a process of inspiration, and that is a process of, because a lot of people are, let's face it, they're I don't know, they're a little like almost feeling like defeated.
Yes. Well, you take the army and you take coaching. A lot of coaching is the army. We have to break that guy. Or my father used to say, you have to
Yeah.
break a horse, you know, and I always said, no, you never break a horse. You work with the
No.
spirit and you bring the spirit of that horse out. And so when I was coaching, it was to look at the individual and to see what that individual had that I could allow them to develop further and really become a good athlete. And you don't.
We're missing the word nurture there. That's what you were
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But,
Yes.
but
Yeah,
it doesn't surprise me. But see, that doesn't surprise me that that Wolfgang takes that approach, because that's the approach that he takes with his plants
right.
and his ecosystems. It's
Yes.
like okay, he's like he feels it out and he says, oh, okay. And I've watched him work. I've witnessed this, and so has Murphy. Right? He'll pick up a plant or whatever, and he'll say, yeah, you really want to go over here, don't you? It's like
Yeah.
you're really going to work well here. Like he's not talking to plants in that literal sense. He's just feeling it, and he just knows. Or like when we were doing the Ned's backyard and we were doing the stones, and we were like, okay, this is the stone wants to face this way, because a
Exactly.
stone has a front, it has a back, it has a head, and it has a bum, because it has the chakras, and it has a crown chakra and a root chakra and all the other chakras. When you feel that, and when you know that, and you say, okay, this is how that stone looks best, and you step back, and I'll never forget this. I'll always carry this the rest of my life. When we had all those big 2-man stones finally aligned, and it was dark, it was nighttime, and it was starting to rain, but the moonlight and the street lights and the glistening water on these stones, and these stones were beaming with pride.
You would
They
say,
were finally given purpose and meaning, and they were standing there all face forward, like the royal guard for
okay,
a king or something. And you could just feel it. We had helped them be their best. We had given them meaning and purpose, and they were just like the self-actualization of the monad, of the being. I can now be finally and live my potential as this stone. And it
right.
was there, and it was palpable.
It's very interesting because someone else would say in that dawn, in that evening light, and in that foggy, what you're seeing is the aura, right? And the whole point is to reduce it and say this is the aura. You see, you've said so much more in not talking about, well, that's the aura. It has an aura, right? And a lot of people, it's I think that's an ego trap that you want to, you know, it happens in the moment, and they're speaking to you, and you're communicating with them, but you're not saying they're speaking to me. Like I was in a place where plants talk to me, and I realized that was a trap that I had to escape. Okay, just like auras is a trap you have to escape, because beyond that is a much deeper and more connected uh, being of yourself, in the sense that it opens you to the larger consciousness, as opposed to your interpretation in your ego kind of, I can see energy, the plants talk to me, and I see auras. There's a really powerful trap there that people get in. It's very difficult to get out of.
But when you say it's a deeper level, it's a deeper level, but it's the level of our true self.
Yeah.
It's the level of our being, and because our being is connected to all beings. And so how do you know that those rocks are beaming with pride, and that if they had tear ducts, they would be crying, but they don't because they're stones. But internally they're crying tears of joy because their monad is actually crying tears of joy in front of our monad. And
Yes.
when you are connected with your higher self, you can know that, you can experience that because your higher self is witnessing that.
Yes.
It's this, there's an entire multiple levels of reality
Oh yeah.
that's beyond our typical perception. But
But
if we open ourselves to it, but you're right, the aura shit to me is just another trap. It's just another layer of obscuration, like looking at someone's facial expressions and saying, I've got to figure out what they're thinking based on their facial expressions.
right.
Oh, okay, now I've got an aura to look at, and oh, now I know what they're really thinking based on their aura.
And
Yeah,
then
but how about
you become an
but how about-
expert, but you're not. You've lost touch.
yeah, and reading auras and colors and all that. You know what? That's like another version of that feng shui crap,
Yes. And
right?
they write
It's just
books
another.
they create constructs. It has to be here and here and there. I discovered with an ecosystem that all that can be changed by just the ecosystem itself can open and change energies, right? It doesn't like it still works against so-called laws of feng shui, but you see there are so many possibilities that cannot reduce it to those constructs of feng shui. Feng shui is a living, moving thing. It's a fluidic thing. It's not written in a book as these are the rules. It doesn't work that way.
But the mechanical mind always wants the reduction because the mechanical mind needs the reduction. Because that's all the mechanical mind can understand is systems and you know and its constructs. It needs that because it's a pattern recognition processor. That's all it is.
And here we are using words, language, which is part of that process.
Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes and no.
Like my Spanish
because
teacher
we're not stuck in the letter of the law. We are engaging in the spirit of it. You call it the us conversation. So we could start talking gibberish and maybe get as much accomplished.
Or like my Spanish teacher said, I told you the first word and the last word, and you go blah, 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 and I say what? In this donut shop where everybody's screaming and yelling in Spanish, what was the first word and what was the last word? And I said the first word. Well, what do you think was in between? And I said blah 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 blah. He said exactly. That's exactly what was in between. So that's
actually. You know what? Not only is that a good strategy for understanding foreign languages, but you know that's a strategy for speed reading.
Yes. Yes.
People do the same thing. You in a sentence or in a paragraph, you read the first sentence and the last sentence, and then you speed read the paragraph. Or the sentence, you can read the first word and the last word and speed read the sentence, and it's the same. It's the same type of thing.
This has happened a number of times where I pick up a book, I look at the title, and boom, like all this stuff just floods into my head. Exactly that kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, the topic for today happened basically because I didn't look at the book. All I heard were a few terms: the name Nietzsche, the last man, the age of the camel, and the age of the lion, and the Ubermensch. That's all I had, and everything has come out.
Kind of pissed me off because you said Nietzsche wrote a book on the last man. I looked it up and I got the wrong book sent to me. He never wrote The Last Man. That is written in Spoke Zarathustra. It's in that book.
Right. Okay.
Talked about. He never wrote a book about that. he just wrote it.
Okay.
Okay. And I went for it and I looked everywhere. And all I got was the last. I have it somewhere. The Last Man, but it's a fiction story about some woman wrote it. I got
really because I thought I saw The Last Man. I thought they took those chapters from Zarathustra and published it as a separate book.
Maybe
okay. So, all right. I'm
It's
not
really
an expert on it, but let me get Benjamin's comment in before it gets too stale. Benjamin says Jiddu Krishnamurti was discovered as a young man by leaders of the Theosophical Society who believed he would become a great spiritual teacher and prepared him for that role. However, he later rejected any messianic title, dissolved the organization built around him, and spent the rest of his life teaching that truth is a pathless land. His work
Yes.
encouraged people to free themselves from conditioning, authority, and preconceived beliefs in order to discover truth directly for themselves.
And wasn't that around the time, or a little bit after, though, Gurdjieff went through the same thing in his life. He was a very unhappy man at the end of his life because he saw how all his teachings had become institutionalized, and he regretted all of it. Yeah.
Well, look, that's why when I picked up my first book that I ever read that was written by Sema and Mayor, it was the Revolution of the Dialectic, and on the you know on the cover, they usually have like quotations and stuff like that, and on the inside flap, as it gave a little biography about the author, and then the quote that Glorian chose to include is his quote. He says, "Do not follow me. I am just a signpost.
Right.
Find your own path to self-realization."
Yeah.
When I read that, I said, this is a guy I can trust.
Right.
I just knew it. When I read those words, of all the so-called gurus and so whatever that I had encountered and all the paths that I had gone down, no one had ever come out and put front and center, okay, whatever you do, don't follow me.
Right.
Right? I'm just a signpost. I'm just pointing the way. But you got to find your own way.
Right.
And I've taken that to heart. And in a very real sense, I've been excommunicated by a number of different Gnostic schools and communities because of it.
Yes.
Because they were not following. To me, that is like a commandment that Samael gave. Do not follow me. And then there's all these Gnostic schools and organizations that are breaking that commandment. They're worshiping the guy, and they're turning him into something and someone that he never wanted to be and never wanted anybody to think of him as.
Yeah. Like, as I know you much earlier, I found you to be defending, well, as if not that you truly believed in it, but defending in, all right, then tell me, like me, tell me then what's wrong with this. And you're going to make me do the work, right? You find yourself supporting that dogma and get me to do the work to disprove it. Like, and I do work with Murphy the same way, but I think I'm having an open discussion with him on it. I'm not projecting like Murphy does that, projecting onto me. And I try to tell him, look, Murphy, don't make me do that work for you. That's your work that you have to do, right? And he's going, well, then why this, right? And I'm going, well, no, I'm just saying it's okay. I used to do that more, and Attila used to do that more. He's moving into that other space now, right? Of not making other people do all the work for him, so that he can free himself and be more true to himself. He doesn't need. But
ironically, I'm also moving into a space where everybody has to do more of the work for themselves.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
At the same time that so I'm moving myself. I'm moving into more of a space of, you know what?
Yeah.
I even put this on my my motto is like my purpose is to show,
Yes.
and that's it. Like just show and plant a seed or whatever. That's it. Like the rest is up to you. I mean, you know.
Right. Yeah. But there's so much showing, and like you're pushing while you're showing, it gets put in there depending on your own framework, right? So you have to make yourself within yourself more flexible, more fluidic, and more allowing. Okay, and then you can still, you have to have faith that you can still have the core present itself with
The
without
thing
any.
about
Yeah.
the thing about that is that it's like gravity,
Yeah.
right? Gravity pulls you towards the center of the earth,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And nothing's going to change that.
Right.
And so
I welcome what you're saying. I welcome it.
right, but there's plenty of things, especially in the modern world, that fight against that pull.
Yes.
And that, because people fly around in airplanes and
I
they live in
know.
skyrise apartment buildings, right? There's lots of things that
Well, the world
like,
the world is going to be what the world is. Remember, we talked before about how we had to first of all spend a lot of time in a talk, in a presentation, knocking down now we don't have to knock down anything. We can go right in with inspiration right off the bat because
yeah,
because we're in the quickening, right?
because it is what it. No, I mean, see, I think what for me the obvious goal or the obvious task, and I'm talking about like Atlas Conscious Arts, right? And
Yeah.
why I've been nursing and why I was chosen to be the caretaker of that brand for for the better part of 35 years
Yes.
is that it all like is coming together and being crystallized in what it's like. Yeah, I don't have to. It is what it is. And when you look online, I also talked about this at the beginning, and Eduardo talked about this as well. I think he had to step away.
Yeah.
There is so much anger and so much rage.
Yes.
And that it's all this pent up frustration. There's so much emptiness and hollowness, and people are trying to satisfy that emptiness by expressing their frustration and rage.
Yes.
And the last thing the world needs is somebody else throwing their voice into all of that with more, negativity and rage and pointing out what's wrong. But everybody knows what's wrong. And even if they don't know it, they feel it. So, but it's this inspiration in the leadership saying, okay, if you have a hole in your heart, there's something that can fill it, but the only thing that can fill it is inside of you.
Okay. Yes. And here's the thing: you used the word when you for the email you said dissonance, and I responded immediately to dissonance, and I'm saying this is part of the what's at work in terms of the raising and the creation and the coming out of the chrysalis of the supermen. We need that dissonance because the dissonance is taking all of that crazy energy, and it's just information overload. It's just frying the nervous system to the point where, like Murphy was saying, we were talking before when we were driving up here, nobody gives a shit anymore. They just don't care. They just can't. They're just burned. And I said, like, they're burned out. Like their nervous system is fried. And he's going, yeah, it's like that. And he's saying, but, and I'm saying, that's what we need. He goes, well, that's not really working for most of the people out there. And I'm saying there are going to be some that it works for, and that's all that matters. And I said, if it's 0.1% that are the ones that this is good for, there's another 0.1% that might break out of the last men, and they have that chance. And we right now have to be all about getting them and helping them. Everything has to be about that right now, which makes the world a better place. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
There's a difference between being burnt out,
yes,
and being resigned.
And I agree, and we did say it's kind of in that place, right?
So, but somewhere, but those two things are related, and resignation comes from a feeling of hopelessness.
Yes.
And hope is the antithesis of hopelessness, right?
Yes.
So hope, we learned in Zack Snyder's Superman what the S is a symbol of.
Okay.
In Zack Snyder's Superman, the S is not an S, it's a symbol of hope. That is the symbol of the house of El. The house of El, and by the way, El means God.
Right.
The house of El, that's the house of Superman that he comes from, right? On Krypton. Yeah. The house of El is the house of God, and its symbol is the S, and it means hope. And that is what Superman brings to a humanity who has resigned to their fate.
Yes.
Because no matter how hard they try, as a last man, they can't get anywhere. So they just throw their arms up in the air and they say, I give up.
Okay. So interesting. You talk about degenerate societies like Native Indian, they became degenerate, right? In a sense. And you can
devolved.
Okay.
The Aztecs became degenerated when they started slaughtering themselves by the thousands. And that's degeneration.
And then there became this overall devolving culture, and that culture itself believed and lived in a circle. It was round and round and round, and that is what held them and kept them in that devolved state. It's not a spiral, because you need a spiral to exit that devolving condition.
But remember,
it needs to be like, sorry, okay.
But there are no circles in nature, because it's only spirals.
I agree.
And if it's not a spiral of evolution, it's a spiral of devolution. Exactly. But it is going around and around and around. They might think that they're in the circle of life, but see, that's mechanical nature doesn't tell them. Yeah, but with every revolution, you're going a little bit in and a little bit down, and a little bit in and a little bit down.
I 100% believe that. Otherwise, there could be no evolution in nature itself, even though it takes a million years. It's still spiraling.
You can't have evolution without devolution. You can't.
Right. But here's the thing. Those cultures adopted the circle, right? All the Indian cultures, and that meant that they were in a down spiral.
Because they were kidding themselves. They were fooling themselves, or rather, they were being fooled.
And so what I'm saying is, so much of today's culture is a circle. It's that movie with Tom Cruise, and I think it was Tom Cruise. Yeah, and repeat, and they do this over and over and over again. Or there's another one called
Groundhog Day with Bill Murray.
That's right.
Where every day he has to play the same day over and over and over again. And guess what? That's hell.
Exactly.
Right?
It is.
That's hell. That's
how you bring hell to earth, and in this life.
again, but remember that's
And look at
it's
how complicated that was. Like you had to keep more complicated each time.
yeah,
The same
yeah, yeah, yeah.
with
That's
the
right.
Tom
Well,
Cruise movie, right? It got so
but
crazy.
ironically, that was the spiral aspect of it,
Ironically,
right? That's the so that's the
the
but see that's
implication though, was that the circle could take us to the spiral. That could
but
happen.
it's always that way. It's always that way. Think
All
about
right,
practice. Think
all
about
right.
practice makes perfect. Every
Yeah,
time you do something, you're doing, quote, the same thing. You're playing the same piece of music, but every time you play it, it's just a little bit better and just a
okay.
little bit better.
Then that's a spiral, right? Like
Exactly.
I'm saying
But the repetition is a circle, but the result is a spiral.
it only bothers me because that isn't the path to mastery. It is a very indirect path to mastery.
Well, no, listen, the spiral is always the path to mastery because there is no other path.
That's what I'm saying. But it depends on how slow. Like evolution is not mastery. It's adaptation. It's not mastery.
Right. So there's no mechanical path to mastery.
So
Right.
here's
That's exactly
Right. And
correct.
that's the key. There's no so in other, that's
Yeah,
your problem with drills and rituals and all that
yeah,
shit.
yes,
Like,
that's
but guess what? If you mechanically play the same piece of music over and over and over and over again, guess what? You can play that same piece of music 1,000 times, and at the end, it's the final 100 times you play it are going to be
yes.
exactly the same, because all
Right.
you've done is you've learned and you've taught yourself how to
Okay.
play it mechanically. And guess what? Nobody is going to want to listen to it because there's no heart, there's no soul,
Yes.
there's no truth to it. It's just you. You might as well buy a one of those player pianos, like they used to
Yeah.
have in the bar.
Yeah. And you know what? If I watch dancers like a show,
Yeah,
if they're not doing it for the very first time, creating it on the spot, it's completely boring as far as I'm
yeah.
concerned. I don't need to see a routine rehearsed. I don't care how spectacular. It's ugly. It hurts
It,
my I don't in the same way, if I have to learn something and repeat, I can't do it. I need to fast track. I need to see like it's the book the Zen of motorcycle maintenance. I think that book that hits right to the core of where I need to go to, because otherwise I just can't do all those again and again and again. I just can't anymore.
no, I
I
know,
can't.
I know.
Like I wish it would. I would. It would suck all the energy out of me to try it. Anyway,
Benjamin says, hope gives us inner strength and resilience. It is often said that we are capable of far more than we realize, but our minds naturally place limits on our strength to protect our bodies from harm. In the
yes,
same way, hope is most powerful when it is grounded and placed in its proper context. It inspires us to persevere, grow, and move in the right direction, even during difficult times.
yes,
And one of my favorite movies is Shawshank Redemption, and
right,
I've talked about it before. I've done entire live streams about Shawshank, and hope is the driving force that Andy Dufresne carries in his heart, which allows him to endure his 20 years of wrongful imprisonment and all of the horrors of and the gang raping and everything else that he has to suffer and endure during his
yeah.
time in prison. It's
Well,
hope that
yes, but
keeps him going.
you said a key that's really important to me. I don't personally. I don't believe in hope. I just have hope in my being. And you suggested that it has to be hope has to be within you. As soon as it's outside of you, then it's no longer within you. It's outside of you. So what I'm saying is that is the precursor to having faith, true faith, is that inner hope that resides within you. It's a very quiet but persistent. It's like you just keep going and you don't know why, but you just got to keep going, right? Because it's that element, that spark within you of hope that allows that to manifest in your what in your avatar reality.
But that's also comes back to what we were talking about. What kind of leadership are we talking about here, and what kind
Yeah,
of inspiration? And
it's
that you can only point someone back to their higher self, which is the
yes,
source of not only their true potential, not
yes,
only their true purpose and meaning in life, not only, as you point out, the actual source of hope,
yes, and it
right?
already exists there. It's already there, right?
But if someone is not connected, if
Yes,
someone is not, then that is the only thing that needs to be broken down and broken through. But they have to do that for themselves. The point that you were making is that, yeah, but maybe the leader or the teacher or the guide can, whatever, maybe he can just like poke a hole and just give them and let them, tell them to just look through the hole.
look through the hole and try to see if you can't remember something that you already knew, rather than, oh, where am I going? What is this? I'm afraid to go there, right? Because it's shaking up my reality behind me, right? That it makes me uncomfortable because it's shaking up all of those identities that I that make me feel so comfortable. I think some of that takes place, right? So the Gnostic thing is to to remember, and I think that helps in this situation.
You know, if it helps, it helps. But
Yes.
if the person can't remember, then it suddenly becomes a hindrance.
Okay. I agree.
Um, I I that is something that if someone is able to do that, that's great. But if they're not, um, my and so I'll give you an example of trying to get someone to pay more attention to the still soft voice, trying to
Right.
get someone to pay more attention to their intuition. But guess what? If someone's unable to hear that still soft voice, if
Yes.
someone's disconnected from their intuition, then telling them to do that is like a slap in the face.
Well, okay, you can say, see if this works. See if you can try to remember. So, so the only reason I'm suggesting it again is because you've already created an alignment with them, and they are feeling more than they're feeling a little more of themselves, and all of a sudden, this word remember reach strikes a bell. It just there's just something there that raises a curiosity, and they align in the connection. They end up finding themselves connecting deeper in that us conversation, and you're actually drawing them into the space of connecting to themselves just through the communication you're having with them. You're not talking at them, you're just with them. True communication.
Yeah, no, sure, fair enough. I don't disagree with that.
You
But it's
know,
I'm just saying that
we have to feel at that moment what as we can offer, and you're not going to offer the wrong thing. You just can't do that
um,
anyway in
So
that space.
it's
So
just that we have to be cognizant that especially if the individual is in a state of resignation,
yes,
right? You don't, if someone is like, so for example, if someone is already discouraged, you
yes,
don't want to you don't want to give them a goal or a task that's going to make them feel even more discouraged.
yes. So let me talk about a plant. A plant, I face the same situation with a plant, not to the same degree as the craziness that human beings come up with, but to a similar kind of thing. And people will say, well, why did that plant? Why was it okay? And the same species, the other one just died. Well, because there's something about that guy that he didn't feel right there, that individual, right? And you can pick up on that. I can. And so what I'm saying is you learn how to use that working with plants, which is easier, and you can apply the same skill in communicating with human beings. It's far more complex, and there's far more elements, as you say, with the human being, but you can read that because you've learned. If you can read it through an alien species like plants, you can certainly do it with something more in alignment already with your humanness, as opposed to, an alien from another world. So the more we communicate with aliens from other worlds, the more we're actually able to communicate with each other. Is what I'm
Murphy,
suggesting.
you wanted to say something or ask something.
Right. I disagree with Wolfgang, and this is because when talking to plants, when talking to outside things, they will directly tell you and stop you at where and what you can't push. If it doesn't work, it won't work. A human being will always understand and will know what won't work, but will still explore it anyways, which makes it harder because if they're in resignation, what you're saying, then you can't really know that because they have so many ways of working through that process. A plant just
No, you're wrong.
stops
A
it.
plant can do exactly what a human does. Exactly, not to the same degree, but exactly the same thing. Otherwise, there would be no possibility for adaptation. That's called adaptation. And a plant can adapt.
A plant dies.
Well, and so does a human being.
no, but not to the
But
same severity.
a human is far more adaptable than a plant. So
That's-
you're correct in that
That's what I'm
aspect.
saying.
Murphy, have you ever seen those documentaries where they show plants and plant behavior? They do the high speed photography. So, or sorry, not high speed photography.
Yeah,
Time lapse photography.
okay.
And you see these plants. They're basically, plants are like basically having like physical confrontations with one another in slow motion. It's
Right.
over a span of weeks. But if you use the time lapse photography, you see these plants and they're literally like wrestling with each other and stuff.
Right.
So plants are they just like minerals, like rocks. Plants just live on a different time scale
Yes.
than we do, or that
Exactly.
animals do, right?
Yes.
Just like bacteria live for like what 3 to 6 seconds is like the lifespan of a bacteria. So, but that's an entire lifespan. So in the same way that but a rock lives for millions of years, but that's its lifespan. There's no difference from the bacteria's point of view or from the rock's point of view that they've lived a full life. One takes 1,000,000 years, the other one takes 6 seconds. But it's still a full life. Plants, no different. So what Wolfgang is saying is, from an archetypical point of view, right? An archetype is an archetype. How that archetype expresses can be different in scale, in scope, in
Yes.
time, and intensity, and in complexity. But the underlying archetype is the same, right? Love is love. Humility is humility. Conflict is conflict.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's stretched out over. And this is something very interesting. Somebody, Rudyard Lynch. I was watching a video of his on the history of mysticism, and he said something very, very interesting that I had never I had never thought about it in this way. And then as he was speaking and as I was considering it, it's like, holy shit, he's onto something. That even nations can experience karma on a national scale, where consider, he says, how the Mongolians, the Mongolian Empire went and in their conquests, they just like ravaged the landscape and they decimated and desolated the landscape everywhere they went. Now look at Mongolia. Mongolia is a desolate landscape. In other words, you reap what you sow, you get what you give, and that a lot of the activities that these nations did. So, for example, the British Empire went and colonized and conquered the world. Guess what? Now England is being conquered and colonized by the world. Like it's the feedback loop. It's karma playing out on a national stage, on a global stage, and everywhere you look, you cannot find an example of where a country didn't reach out and act in the world in a way that didn't come back to bite it in the ass in exactly the same way, archetypically, as what they did to the world.
Yeah, and right now we're at this place of revelations where we're seeing everything that you're saying, and we're saying, okay, shit, we can't do this again. And you got the globalists saying, no, we have to do this. We got to hold the world together. And they're going, no, you guys you're finished. It's over. And they are over, but they're not. They're clinging, and they're trying to get people to the masses, the mass formation, to brainwash them to keep that old reality intact. And everything we've been talking about already exists in the new model that's emerging. They don't know yet what it's going to they just know, okay, we need some guidance, some people to guide the process. So they're going power blocks. They're going, we're going to need some of, like US, Russia, China, and we're going to have these principles, ecosystemic, principles, which gives autonomy, so that we give power to each individual within the system. But we have to be realistic. We're going to get some old kind of piracy, kickback. So we're going to have to work together and support each other, so that the bad actors don't, the parasites don't take over again. Right?
Well, okay, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen, because the parasites are going to do what they always do.
Yes.
In these times, they're going to cut and run. They're going to go and they're going to go and take all their exploited money and wealth and power.
Yes.
And they're going to run for the hills, and they're going to go into their bunkers and their caves and their islands, and they're going to go and seek refuge, not refuge. What's the word? It's not a refuge. It's a sanctuary.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but my focus now is to keep putting out this energy, this beacon into the world. You know what? We are Ubermensch.
That's right.
It's the days of, because yeah. I do also, something really resonated with me, that what Nietzsche said.
Yes.
The age of the lion doesn't happen until the age of the camel comes to an end. And the age of the camel comes to an end with the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Yes.
That's when the Ubermensch leap into action, and that's when we get the age of the lion.
Okay, I 100% agree with that. Now, in what context? Is it in the it's always in the context of me, individual, but it's also in context of the larger. So the larger could be the whole bloody universe is shifting.
It's not the universe, but it's our planet. It's the cosmos. It's the cosmos.
Okay.
It's our planet. It's our planet. This is the transition of one humanity, from one humanity to the next humanity, and the bridge and all that stuff, and Aquarius and all that stuff. Okay, it's it affects the universe, but it's highly localized to us. There's not some grand thing happening in the universe they have to worry about.
It's unique in every application. So in other words, I'm suggesting that if that's happening here, there's a parallel that completely does not cross, that's happening on a larger realm, that's in the same kind of pattern, and it's doing something completely different. Okay, so we would interpret that as, oh, there's these cosmic rays coming from the galaxy that are different than before. Okay, because of where we are in the cycle. Okay, so, but you know, that's like a reductionistic horse manure, but I'm suggesting something of that nature, of that caliber.
Okay, but what I don't understand, like, why. Okay,
because everything is connected to everything. That's why.
No, I understand that.
Okay,
but knowing that and saying that, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I can tell you that the climatic changes that are happening on this planet are the result of the sun.
Yes.
They're not a result of anything human beings are doing. It's the result of the sun.
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, but then we can talk about the cosmic rays, we can talk about the rays of the Christ, we can talk about all of these, and we can also talk about the fact that everything that's happening here is affecting multiple other humanities and multiple other solar systems throughout the galaxy. Okay.
For sure.
But I said that when I said what is happening here is affecting elsewhere, and what is happening here is a result of what's happening. But our focus has to be here and now.
Oh, listen, 100%. So
right?
I'm being like Nietzsche when I repeat, because I didn't hear. So I'm just amplifying that point that you already made. So I didn't realize, and I had to not realize that you said it so that I could amplify it. So
we just have to keep our eye on the ball.
Yeah, we're in accord. Okay, and
Benjamin says, is the Superman building an ark in the present age, so to speak, or perhaps like the wise virgins in the parable, preparing and gathering oil in anticipation of what is to come? Look, this is probably we'll have to leave this until next week. This question, Benjamin, because it's too big. It's we're almost at the 3-hour mark, and this is too big a question.
But I would say
the short answer is yes.
Yes.
But the long answer is much larger than simply yes.
I agree.
Why, Wolfgang? Did you want to say something on that?
No, I'm just saying. I think it is the arc, and that's where the rubber meets the road. What us engaging and making the world a better place, but there's this other aspect of being part of something that's already unfolding. And that is what I was trying to say before with connecting to the connectedness of the bigger scope of things. I'm saying that also exists, and it is part of what's causing, which bringing us through what we're going through. It's connected.
Well, the age of Aquarius happened in like 1968.
Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot. Like, we could spend 10 hours just talking about all the different influences that have happening, before and since. Because as you, but remember, it's like that would be like you trying to explain all the different connections and relationships in an ecosystem.
But we need to at least be aware and wary of that reality. In other words, the more we include and allow ourselves to be guided by that multiplicity of values of factors, we don't have to break it down. I don't have to know the infinite things that plant needs. I just need to connect with the plant and be guided by what needs to happen there. And that's
Okay. And my point is this: the
Yeah.
multiplicity is not out there. The universe is not out there.
oh, that's right.
So if you connect into your higher self,
Absolutely.
all of that stuff gets covered because your higher self is your connection point to the multiplicity and
Yes.
to the entire universe. So if you
Yes.
connect to your higher self, then all of that awareness of all that stuff gets covered and handled.
Yeah. Okay. So
You don't have to sit there worrying about all the connections out
No,
there
listen,
because there is no out there.
I swear to
There
God,
is no out there.
wait, I swear to God, I'm saying exactly the same thing, but I'm doing it in an action mode. In other words, I'm going, the more I go out there, the more I go in there. It just happens just like that within a split second. There's no problem,
well-
no issue, right? So
I have to make sure
yes,
that gets explicitly said because there are far too many people. Our friend Elon Musk is one of them.
Okay.
Who is trying to get to Mars.
Yeah, but he's having this battle with himself, and he's right now where Christ went in the desert, right? He's a little bit in the desert with all of that.
Well, maybe. Benjamin asks, he asks, do you think the changes and events we're experiencing today could be related to humanity's transition to the age of Aquarius, as some traditions and schools of thought suggest? They're absolutely connected and related to that.
Yeah.
But they're more related to the Kali Yuga and what Nietzsche called the age of the last man and the age of the camel.
Yes. There's more than just another age coming. There's more to it.
That's right. There's so many different
convergence.
It's a convergence, right?
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
And so
this is big.
It's like
you got to talk some more about this. It's big. Yeah.
No, that's what I mean. I think maybe we'll just leave it till next week, though.
Yeah.
Because these are huge questions and they're big topics, and we don't necessarily want to go another 3 hours today.
Yeah, we'll burn ourselves out and we'll be like the last man again.
Yeah, that's right. But Benjamin, thank you for your questions anyway.
Yeah.
And I hope we gave you like some short answers to tide you over. But maybe we will take a look at this in more detail next week, because really it's really, for me anyway, it's been the purpose of my life. It's now coming together. It's coming into formation. And so it's good for us to be talking about it and speaking about it in the way we are, because I'm not alone, right? Wolfgang, you're not alone. We're not alone. There's many people around the world who have been doing their own thing, their own way, and now it's time to put it out there that we're all connected under this one purpose, this similar mission, if you will.
Yeah.
And that our time is coming.
Yeah.
That the time is close at hand. People
have said to me, you're so lucky that you know why you're here and what you're here to do. And just because I was building some ecosystem, that was just biding my time, right? I always knew there was something really powerful underneath that. And it's interesting that other people just keep asking. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm here to do. But I mean, that's a good starting point, maybe. For, at least that is a good starting point.
Right.
Well, someone once said that that if you're asking about your purpose, what is my purpose? I don't know my purpose. What is that act of you like going crazy trying to figure out what your purpose is,
yes,
is your purpose trying to get out.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
That it's that there's a nagging intuitive something inside of you that's making you reflect on yourself, and
Yes.
it's making you so that that's actually like your purpose trying to dig its way out,
Through the
right?
veil. Yeah.
Yeah. And if as it's trying to dig its way out, the sand is going down and you're
Well,
getting sucked down into the sand, and
but
sooner or later you're going to make that connection.
it's a space, it's an emptiness where you can do that from. Anyway.
Mutaga 33 says, sometimes when I look at how bad things have become, I wonder how low can we fall? But then again, humanity can always surprise you. It's true. You know how they say never? You never want to tempt fate by saying humanity has fallen as far as it can go. You
Right.
never want to tempt fate that way, because humanities are capable of a lot worse.
Yes.
And this humanity has done that in the past, and it has the capacity to do it again in the future. So we never want to tempt fate that way. But on the other hand, as we were saying earlier, we always want to have hope, and we have to have a message of hope, and we have to act in such a way, like Wolfgang would say, the glass is half full,
I was just going to
and
say,
choose to act that way. Because listen, if the glass is going to be half empty, it's going to be half empty no matter what.
right.
So we might as well be glasses half full.
Yeah, and screw them if they can't take a joke.
Yeah, and screw them if they can't take a joke. Yeah. Okay, look, does anybody have any more questions or comments, or before we try to wrap up? My purpose today was to Benjamin says, thank you, sirs, for sharing your insights on these topics. Your discussions continually give me new perspectives and help me connect the dots in ways I hadn't considered before. I always learn something valuable from your exchanges. Please keep up the great work, and thank you again for sharing your knowledge. Well, thank you, Benjamin, as always, for participating, and hope we'll see you again next week, as always. My goal was to bring into perspective what I think the task at hand is for my part, and that is to put, keep putting out, trying to be the best person I can be, and keep putting out into the world the vision that there are others like us, and they've also been living alone, for lack of a better word, or in a relative obscurity, or doing their thing on their own, and so on. And but that now's a time for this connecting spirit to start, like, bringing us all together around the round table. Because that's the first thing that Arthur does, is he travels the countryside, and he gathers knights to join him at his court in Camelot. And he makes the round table, and he gets all of these knights to come to Camelot and join his round table. And then when he has assembled his knights around the round table, that's when he says, okay, now we're going to go and get the Holy Grail. And so that's Arthur's role, is to assemble his court at Camelot, so that they can go and fulfill the prophecies and find the Holy Grail, and all the missions that he gets from the Lady of the Lake and all that stuff. So and we have to have faith that those knights, those noble men and women, in this case, are out there. These, what Nietzsche called the Ubermensch, the supermen, that they're out there, and that our time is almost at hand, and that we want to be prepared for that, for when the age of the camel ends, so that the age of the lion can begin.
The only thing I'll
And
say, no,
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say to that is that because we're talking about it, we know it's already there. Otherwise, there's no reason to be talking about it and it wouldn't be showing up. So that itself should bring a lot more inspiration in the fact that you can do something because you're talking about it. So that's all I want to add there.
I would only add to that and say that there may be another element to this, whereby what we're looking at is the recognition of what you said. In other words, we are already connecting to that group. That group already exists, and we're already speaking to it, connecting to it, and recognizing the beginnings of that taking place. So it may end up being a physical meeting, creating a circle, but I'm suggesting it might not necessarily have to be a physical meeting of people.
So
It could be a number of people, but it doesn't have to be everyone of that group.
see, by everyone being here today,
Yeah.
I think that adds to the direction of consciousness and observation,
Right.
which is the key component of working with being inspired, not being the last man, because that has what do you call it, an involvement in what you guys calling hope. The hope that has been brought to us is us bringing back the energy that's been given to us by it.
The life, being given back the life that is being drained out of the old humanity, and bringing life back into the new level of where humanity needs to be, or where it wants to be, for lack of better words.
I will say though, as like I'm a young guy, so I'll always bring shit to it, and the hope itself will always be like, "Hey, bring it on," and that will cause self harm. At the same time, that's also how we grow. That's how experience, and that's how the things start to open up little by little. So there's and also can be extremely fast as well. So it always has multi-layered aspects to it, at least for my experience.
Okay, well, listen, let's wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. Mutaga says, thank you all. Love the exchanges. Thank you, Mutaga, for being here. Thank you for your comments. Again, I hope to see all of you again, same time next week. And until then, as always, I wish everybody an inferential peace. Take care, and we'll see you guys next week.